Lately, there's never a quiet night at AmFam Field. Now they're running with the home plate umpire and the umpires in general at AmFam Field, but the Brewers do snap their 3-game skip. We'll talk about that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, the Brewers get into it with Tampa a little bit. Couple of incidents out there. Yeah, another game where the umpires are involved. You know, the umpires are supposed to be quiet. Somehow they always get themselves involved lately in Brewers games. And Tyler Black gets called up. All that coming up here on this edition of Locked On Brewers. And the Brewers snap their mini 3-game skid. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. This show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use the promo code, all lowercase, LockedOnMLB for that first deposit match up to $100. Our podcast, Locked On Brewers, the number one brewer podcast on the internet. You get it on Google, Spotify, Apple, run all the major downloads. And of course, go to our growing YouTube page, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. That'll alert you every time we drop an episode on Locked On Brewers. Well, interesting night at AmFam Field. Again, you know, Tampa's one of these teams where kind of nondescript to me. You know, there's a few of those teams out there that they're just kind of blah to me. And I'm not talking about this year's team. I'm just talking about franchises in general. When the Pittsburgh Pirates come to town, it's like, ugh. Tampa comes to town. They don't do much for me. Rangers, same thing. Texas Rangers, not much. You know, we all have their teams that, you know, that just doesn't have that spark to me. And Tampa's one of those teams. Just down the road, the Bucks are playing in a playoff game against Indiana, playing for their playoff lives. And, you know, over at AmFam Field, Tuesday night at AmFam Field, Brewers taking on Tampa Bay Rays, trying to snap that skid. They win it 8-2. And, you know, some good things did happen in this game, but overshadowing everything was another run-in with the umpires. So you had the Aaron Judge incident on Sunday where the umpire said, my bad, we screwed up. There should have been interference. Okay, whether or not the Brewers go on and win that game is anybody's guess. And then on Monday night, there was the follow-through, which everybody was talking about in Wisconsin today. The follow-through. And, you know, whether it looked like the time runner was going to score in the 9th inning. Didn't. Okay. And then there's this one here on Thursday night. Brewers out to a 6-1 lead on Tampa, cruising along. Freddy Peralta pitching great, striking out 7. And he's on the mound. And he plunks Siri, the hitter for the Marlins, after Siri hit the longest home run in AmFam Field this year, 452 feet. That was quite a poke. And he watched it a little bit. I don't have any problem with that. So he watched it a little bit and hit the home run. So next time Siri's up in the 6th inning, Peralta throws him 3 balls. And on the 4th one, hits him square in the thigh. Umpires get together. Peralta, you are gone. Peralta walks off the mound. Murphy runs out of the dugout, gets tossed again. Fiery Pat Murphy having his guy back. I thought that was cool. And he's in the right here. I mean, how's that umpire crew going to wildly know that Freddy Peralta was intentionally throwing just because the guy had a 400-foot home run, 452-foot home run? They automatically said, well, Peralta, he must have been ticked off because he gave that home run, so he threw at the hitter Siri. I mean, that's just stupid. I mean, Major League Baseball. And on top of it, that home plate umpire was getting confrontational with Murphy. Murphy had every reason to battle that, but I felt like the home plate umpire just kept on egging him on, wanted more from Murphy. Just kept on at it. Instead of diffusing the situation, walking away, kept it on, you know, antagonizing Murphy more. I'm on Murph's side here. And, you know, on Peralta, he's saving his pitcher because The last thing the Brewers need, well, one of the last things, is for Peralta to have a short start. And he pitched into the 6th inning, but you were hoping to get him through 70. It was at 66 pitchers, and now you got to use your bullpen. And needlessly in a 6-1 game. Because you guessed Major League Baseball, these guys, these umpires, man, there's not the NFL, not the NBA officials, okay? You can question those all you want, but these Major League Baseball umpires, man, and it's getting worse and worse. These guys got some attitudes. And I'm not telling you anything you haven't heard before, but man, they get together, take the game into their own hands. Peralta, you're gone. What? Peralta after the game, said, hey, you know what? I was not, of course, he's not. Either way, pitchers are never openly come out and say, yeah, I intentionally threw at that guy. Peralta said, no, I had no reason to throw at him. I saw him hit home runs before. I've seen him on videotape, and I saw, that he stares at the ball basically after he hits a home run. No big deal. I had no reason. I've never done that. I've never thrown at a player before, and I wasn't going to do it this time. He knew that he wanted to stay in that game. That his team needed him to stay in it for 7 innings. So there was no reason for Peralta to throw at anybody. And then, he does, and then the umpires get together, and then for a 3rd game in a row, the pool reporter, in this case, Adam McKelvey, has got to go down and interview one of the umpires, and they said they had 3 choices: either to keep him in the game, warn him, or throw him out. And they chose to throw him out because they all got together and said, well, it looked like he tried to throw at him. I mean, how do you... Common sense. Officiating, common sense. Where's common sense gone in our world? Certainly not with Major League umpires who love to make themselves the show. They just love to do that. In this case, they tossed out Peralta. Murphy, don't blame him one bit. Whatever he said to this guy, he had it coming. The home plate umpire, Guccione, I think it is, came out and, told Peralta, if you could read his lips, said, you basically did that on purpose. You threw at him. I'm surprised Peralta didn't get ticked off or anything and go into a rage. I certainly would if I was a pitcher. Murphy, of course, having the back of his team. But anyway, you slice it. I like the battling. So Siri stays in the game, and we're not done here because he stays in the game, and then there's a ground out with Uribe on the mound, and those two have an incident, and there's a bench clearing brawl. Uribe throws a haymaker. Now, Uribe is probably going to get suspended for that. But Uribe was having Peralta's back. There must be something going on. There must be something going on with Siri, Peralta, and Uribe having his back. I don't know, but just seemed odd. The whole thing just seemed kind of odd. I don't think Peralta was throwing at him, but then when Uribe says something to him and throws a punch at him, and then it's game on, and Rhys Hoskins in the middle of it, I don't know. It was a wild night. I'm on Peralta's side. You know what? Locked on Brewers. I'm going to say Peralta was not throwing at him. Okay? Not throwing at him. Officials, home plate umpire, umpiring crew, once again, attitude. We're looking to take the game into their own hands. So Brewers ended up winning the game. Willy Adames hit a 3-run blast to take this game from 3-1 to 6-1. And that's how I'm looking at this. They had to tax the bullpen a little further, but you know what? The Brewers won the game, bottom line. Uribe is going to get a suspension on this. Hopefully he'll appeal it, maybe get it down for a few games, and we'll see how that happens. But, man, I was ticked off. Here I'm not covering the game. I'm watching both, and I'm watching the Bucks, blowing out a team, and I'm watching the Brewers with an 8-2 win, and I'm thinking, man, what a great night in Wisconsin. And then, I watching Uribe on the other set, doing what he did. Now, unfortunately, he's going to get, like I said, a suspension. Brewers don't need that, but I don't blame him for sticking up for his guy, Freddy Peralta. Not Willie, Freddy. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Have you tried DoorDash yet? DoorDash, we all have. And DoorDash has got a great new offer for everybody out there. 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flour, convenience, grocery, retail order now at DoorDash. There's so many things you can get. And especially with Mother's Day right around the corner, coming up here in a couple of Sundays, get something thoughtful from DoorDash. Surprise your mom. Fresh bouquets, latest tech gift cards, self-care treats. You can get that delivered to her. You can deliver it to your house. Somebody can buy it from the store. You get those gift cards from the store. Any way you want it. Get a bookstore gift card, whatever. Thoughtfulness towards your mom, because your mom and your dad are your two. And don't forget your dad coming up on Father's Day. Okay. But Mother's Day first. Start her day with flowers. Surprise her with gifts from DoorDash with the delivery. 50% off your next order. $15, up to $15 when you spend $15 or more. DoorDash, use it for whatever. Convenience, grocery, retail orders, flowers. It's all good with DoorDash. Chuck Freeman here. Locked On Brewers, and I use it for food. Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Tyler Black gets into the ball game, and maybe another injury for the Brewers. And an interesting stat regarding Cheerio. All that's coming up next here on Locked On Brewers. Welcome back to Locked On Brewers. Chuck Freeman, your host here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. I want to check out, see if there's a betting line for Wednesday. I said Peralta was minus 180 on the betting line. Tampa, a flight with Eflin on the mound. They're a 125 favorite. Colin Ray gets a start. Man, I just feel like Colin Ray just pitched. Well, it was Friday night he pitched. Ray with an ERA right around 3, a 2-0 record. Colin Ray makes the start on the hill. And, of course, we'll be out with a podcast coming up on Wednesday night. I'm speaking to a banquet, the Milwaukee Braves Historical Society, I believe it's called. Doing that on Wednesday night, right after the game on Wednesday. And we'll be right back here doing a podcast on Wednesday night. Wrapping up the 3-game series. And then Wrigley for our first time. And the first meeting with Craig Counsell coming up on Friday. Interesting. Tyler Black called up, got into the game when Sanchez had to come out of this game. Gary Sanchez left with a hammy. He'll have an MRI done, but that was not cool to see Sanchez leave this game with his hammy. And Tyler Black came in the game, got 2 hits, and his dad was in the stands. And I'm always amazed how these parents and family members get to anywhere so quickly. Like if my kid got into a game in Seattle, okay, tomorrow afternoon, how am I going to get to Seattle by noon, their time? Okay. These parents all do it. They drop everything they're doing and they get there. I suppose you find a way. Got to find a flight and all that. But Tyler Black, his dad lives in Canada, is a sportscaster, was at the game and did the play-by-play of Black's base hits recorded them. How cool was that? I do that for my kids sometimes in Little League. I do a little play-by-play for him. But Tyler Black, and this is what the Brewers do, they call somebody up and they're not afraid to use him, put him right into the ball game, called him up earlier in the day. And, he's the number 4 prospect of the Brewer organization. Good to see it. Owen Miller got sent down by the Brewers who, Owen Miller, I'm sure that's not the last time he'll get sent down or get called up by the team. But the Cubs coming up on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Interesting. First meeting with Craig Counsell, and it's going to be at their ballpark Friday afternoon, Saturday, Sunday. I do love Friday afternoon. I know a lot of people do not like Wrigley Field. They call it the dump and all that. I don't like the Cubs. I dislike the Cubs, and along with every Chicago team, much as the next guy. But I do appreciate the historic part of Wrigley Field. Now, when you go to Wrigley Field, it's not like the old days. It's not like, where they didn't have any lights. And when the lights got there, then corporate America came in and took over Wrigley. There's a hotel right next to it. but still it's Wrigley Field. And to me, historical venue. Still love going to Wrigley, especially afternoon games. Been there for night games, but it's not the same. They play Friday afternoon games because of the agreement that they have with the neighborhood that they're only going to play night afternoon games on a Friday. They will not play Friday night games unless it's a playoff game, but a Friday afternoon game at Wrigley, always very, very cool, especially when the Brewers come away with a win. In Colorado will be pitching, though, Wednesday in the first game with Washington. We'll tell you an interesting stat about Jackson Chourio coming up next here on Locked On Brewers before we say goodbye. Goodbye and a Brewer victory. PrizePicks. Let's talk about PrizePicks right here. PrizePicks. Let's say you want to send a few players together and win up to 100 times your money. PrizePicks. PrizePicks. Pick the world's best player. Basketball, hockey, baseball. Test your skills with PrizePicks this baseball season, and you could turn $10 into $100 with just a couple of taps. PrizePicks is really simple to play. Make your picks, submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, an enormous selection of players and stat types. And PrizePicks is the number one fantasy sports app for a reason, because they do a bunch of things right. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That first deposit match up to $100. Again, download PrizePicks. PrizePicks. Use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That first deposit match up to $100, and you can start winning, doubling, tripling 100 times your money. You think you like a certain pitching matchup with a guy? Okay, you like a player against this pitcher? You do the research. I'm telling you, you can win big. PrizePicks, but download the app today. Also, show is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Download Monopoly Go. You've played the game Monopoly. Now you can team up with friends for timed tournaments. You can work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Stickers, unique stickers, trade with friends, new playing pieces to travel the boards with. All this and more. Hilarious emojis as well. But if you played Monopoly, which we all have and continue to do, we have 2 games in our living room as we speak. Download this game, Monopoly Go. It's just like the regular game, but only more fun. Download it free on Google Play, App Store, and so on. Game on. Go with Monopoly Go. This is Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We're coming right back. Welcome back to Locked On Brewers. Chuck Freeman, your host here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Good to have you along. See if I got any instant reaction regarding the Brewers. A couple of people not happy with a lot of you aren't happy because you think the Brewers are getting screwed by MLB officials. The Brewers do the small market thing. Yeah. Well, let's face it. We get screwed on a lot of things. There's a lot of nice things that we can't have being the Milwaukee Brewers. I think we know that. We live with it. And yeah, the Brewers get screwed on Sunday. Absolutely. And Freddy Peralta getting tossed. Again, if it was a close game, if it was a 2-2 game and Peralta got tossed, it would be a lot worse. Now, do they throw? Here's the thing about them tossing Peralta. If that's a playoff game, do they toss Peralta right there? That's a World Series game. Do they toss Peralta? If that's a game in a pennant race, do they toss Peralta? Probably not. Okay. Do they toss Shohei if he's on the mound? Do they toss Garrett Cole when he's healthy on the mound? Do they toss the great pitchers in the league? Do they toss them? Freddie's still trying to make his way. Okay. But they tossed him. I don't think they do that with a pitcher that's earned his wings and has been around the block a little bit. Now, he's been in the league for 7 years, but I don't know. I still think that's a little disrespectful and a little odd thinking that they would toss Peralta and to not expect Murphy to have Peralta's back. I'll tell you what, the battling Brewers, though, you got to like them. They kicked up some dust with the Mets earlier this year, that Rhys Hoskins thing, and now Tampa. So you had a couple of 2 dust-ups. The battling Brewers. Hey, at least this team's got a pulse, man. At least this team's got a pulse. They got some fight to them. Okay. Might not be the most talented team in the league, but my gosh, they're 18-11. They're winning games. They got injuries. It's them against the world. Okay. They're them against the world. You know, the Milwaukee Brewers, they can't sign the big free agents out there, you know, but they're coming together. And Murphy, how can you not like Pat Murphy through the first, 20 some odd games of this season so far, 28 games of the season? How can you not like him as a manager? He's got a pulse. He's out there fighting for his team. Seems a little different though. I don't like going down this road about, with Counsell and Murphy, but man, when Murphy's out there jawing it up with the umpires, man, a lot more intimidating than Craig Counsell going after somebody. You got to admit to that. Murphy, man, you don't want to get in his way. He's coming out there and it's game on. Man, I love that. I love the fight in this team. Well, I do. There's a lot to like. I'm enjoying it. Just like last year's team, they have a common denominator. Sometimes, you wonder, man, what's going on with this team? How come they're scoring one run a game? They play smart, high baseball IQ. Sometimes you just like, what's going on with these guys? Why do they struggle so much? And then they come out and play a beautiful game like they did tonight. Another great pitching performance, by the way. Back to back. Freddie, you had what Bryce Wilson did. Keep talking about the pitching and the taxed pitching. They're going to be further taxed when Uribe gets a suspension, I'll tell you that. But hey, got to love our team. Got to love that they're 18-11 and a showdown with the Cubs coming up this weekend. Got one more game, Tampa, noon start. A couple of weeks ago, we had that noon start against the Pirates or so. Man, we were out of there by 2:30. We were out of there before rush hour traffic. Anyway, to get it done. See if Tampa has a little retaliation. We'll see if Tampa throws at anybody today. Are they going to get involved? Are they going to, their guy got plunked? Well, one of our guys get plunked. There's 3 guys who got hit with pitches. Hoskins got hit with a pitch as well. So, all right. We'll be back at the TV for that drama coming up on Wednesday afternoon. And, of course, later on Wednesday night, we'll be dropping the podcast. Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. You get us on Google, Spotify, Apple. We're on all the major downloads. And, of course, our growing YouTube page. Search Locked On Brewers. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell. That'll alert you every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Brewers. And, of course, follow me on Twitter, Chuck Freeman, FREIMUND. All you everydayers, I see your comments. I read them. There's comments on YouTube as well. But please follow us along here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Good night, everybody.